Hello and welcome to Fireside Chat, where we meet with various companies and entrepreneurs here in Southern California. I am Gina Monteleone, and I am located in one of our 3 global offices here in Los Angeles. Today, we meet with Lindsay Nahmiache, the CEO of Jive PR Digital. Thank you, Lindsay, for joining us.
Thank you.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My name's Lindsay Nahmiache. I'm the founder and CEO of Jive PR Digital. We are a full-service communications, that means PR, digital marketing, social media, and influencers agency. Been around for 12 years, started in Canada, and then opened our US offices about 7 years ago.
Okay, great. Well, welcome. Before getting into more about Jive, can you tell us about your experience working abroad in Mumbai and London for e-entertainment?
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Absolutely. I moved over to Europe when I was 19. Was originally just going for the summer to work and ended up waitressing at a Rolling Stones restaurant and ended up staying for 4 years, but then got the job with E-Entertainment, which was great. So doing a lot of marketing for them as they were just opening their European and Africa offices. So that was the base of London. And did that, and then ended up going to Mumbai, India, and I worked for a Bollywood film company, which is called Contalo Films, and they did a ton of MTV content plus a ton of films, and it was just a very random, incredible experience. I was supposed to be there backpacking for a few months and stayed for a few years. So the same thing with London. I was supposed to go there for a couple months and ended up staying for a few years. But I firmly believe that international experience is the best kind of work experience, and it helps you get to learn people better, know other cultures, and just a really good way, solid base to build a career from.
Awesome. How did you get started creating and opening up Jive PR and Digital?
That's a good question. So, I've been away for about 6 years in London, India, and when I came back, I wasn't able to figure out what I wanted to do, and so I just started doing contract work, and I actually started sending music videos back and forth between India and Canada at the time where I was based. And then one thing led to another, and I was getting more contracts, and then we did the Toronto International Film Festival, and then more contracts came on, and then ended up finding a business partner and hiring a full staff. So it kind of came, it wasn't a planned endeavor. I wasn't one of those people going I'm going to be an entrepreneur and do this. It really just materialized on its own. But the best things happened that way, because then we had just incredible growth. Our first year in business, we started working with Virgin. We helped them launch all of their social media channels up in Canada, Virgin Radio, and it was a really great experience.
Makes sense. So could you explain a little bit of how PR, I know Jive does kind of the whole gamut of media, but how does advertising differ from PR?
That's such a good question, and one we are constantly having to tell clients about. So advertising is when you are paying for a placement, so you control the message. You're saying, I want to get this page in the LA Times, or I want this on this online site. You pay for the placement, so you can control exactly what it says. PR, on the other hand, is earned. So what that means is that you hire an agency and they pitch on your behalf to get you a story. But the value of PR is that story is so much more credible than a paid placement. Because as a consumer, you read something and you're like, oh, I see that's an advert. You don't necessarily trust it as much. But if a journalist is writing a story or a feature about it, you just automatically trust it more because it's considered non-biased. So PR, you don't actually pay for, you just pay for the people's time or the agency's time to get it. But much more effective and valuable. Listen, love advertising as well. To have both in conjunction helps with your brand awareness. You want to be in the right places at the right time. But PR is definitely more credible for brands who are wanting to grow and establish a presence.
Would you say that influencer marketing is more like PR then, or is it kind of a bridge between both?
Yeah, great question. It's a bridge between both. And the reason I say that is because the brand is still paying the person for the endorsement, right? So it's not that the person's just like, oh, you know what, I love this new coffee that I have, and they're just talking about this new version of coffee that they have. A brand's going to them and saying, hey, can you do this placement? We want you to say it in your own tone of voice so it seems natural, but here's the key messages we want you to hit. So And most influencers that you'll see it, they'll hashtag ad or advertisement in their post just because it's that's what it is. And then, but you know what happens is if you get an influencer who just genuinely likes something and they're not getting paid for it and they start talking about it, people believe that more. So influencer marketing is the future of marketing. And the spend, I mean, there was crazy stats last year. I think it was, there went up billions and billions of dollars of just how much is dumping into the influencer economy. So I think especially if you have a direct-to-consumer brand, influencer marketing has to be a part of your strategy. And you want the right influencers, right? So just because someone has 1 million followers, that's not necessarily going to help your brand. Like you might be better off finding 10 nano or micro influencers, which are within different thresholds of followers, and they'll be more effective than an actual 1 million person follower account.
Absolutely. Say there's a new brand that is looking to launch. Can you walk us through the process to increase their brand awareness, especially in the beginning? So it would have to be in a more simple way?
Yeah, absolutely. So like a new brand that has no market awareness?
Yeah.
Okay. So first of all, knowing your customer avatar. Like I know everyone says that, like your persona, but really being clear about who your persona is and knowing the details of where they're going to go. Just because, you know, so say someone's launching a brand in LA, oh, we're in LA, we have to be in the LA Times. Like no, because like there's a certain demographic that doesn't read the LA Times, right? Whether it's print or digital. Like you really want to understand your customer avatar, and you want to hire a local firm or a local contractor to walk you through it, because especially we represent quite a few international brands that launch into the US. You know, we work with this big pet food account, we work with butter, like we work with a lot of fast moving consumer goods, and what works for them in their market doesn't work in this market. And if you come out and start speaking in a certain way here, you're going to do disservice to your brand before you actually serve it. So going back to what I would recommend is definitely get your customer avatar developed, and then don't spend a ton of money on paid digital media and stuff like that up front. Like do tests, do little tests to see what's resonating, do a bit of a focus group, and do some influencer marketing, because influencers, like ones that are good and used to working with brands, they'll give you feedback right away as well, because they're working with a ton of local products. And if you sit there and say, hey, listen, we're launching this new brand, here's what we think our key message is or what our USP is, what do you think? They're gonna be like, oh, you know what, yeah, it's great. Or you know what, don't talk about this because my audience isn't gonna care about that. So you wanna spend time doing little micro tests before you go in and do a full, like hundreds of $1,000 campaign launch here.
Would you say that the majority of those tests would be through digital, or would you even recommend, like, say you're a food brand going out to a farmer's market and just having questionnaires and sharing samples? Or
that's great. That's like a real person focus group. So yeah, I'd recommend both. Like digital in the terms that you can just see the impressions and the conversion, but if you want to speak with people and get their real feedback, yeah, like if farmers market's great. Going back to the butter brand that we were helping to launch here, that's what they did. They went to farmers market, and the founder came out with someone from our team, and they would talk to people and see what what resonates with you. And then what they would do is they would also get into like little boutique stores, little places in Hollywood even that was just like really boutique little cafe, and they would get in there and then they would do sampling and get feedback that way. But that's a great way to market. It depends on the brand as well. Like if, I would say very different things from cosmetics that I would to butter, that I would to clothing, right? So it depends what you're going to do and how you do it. But definitely test the market and get feedback first. And we're seeing a trend right now, and it changes all the time, but paid digital is not converting like it used to. Like paid digital ads, we're recommending brands don't do it. Like the numbers that you're getting on Facebook are different from the actual numbers that you're seeing in your Google Analytics in the back end. So that influencer marketing and list building, and then marketing automation. So once you get people in, you're nurturing them through activation sequences, retention strategies, all of that. That's becoming increasingly popular. And I'd say, with some of our clients, we're diverting a lot of budget that we used to do for paid to spend more time doing much more customizable programs for people when you get them in as warm leads. And partnerships, partnerships are key, right? So if you're launching a new brand and let's go back to the butter company, but like your butter, but yet there's this great bake shop, right? You can sit there and do a partnership with them and by leveraging like-minded people's lists, you grow your list that way. So that's a really good strategy as well.
Can you walk us through the steps that an international company would do or take to launch in the US?
Yeah, absolutely. So one option is that you can work with some countries have a consulate in LA that will help companies come over at the commerce site. But what I'd recommend, because what they're going to do as well, is step one, find a local representative on ground. Like find a local representative, interview a few, and talk to ones who've done this before, because it's one thing for a company to launch a product that's an American product. It's another thing for them to work with an international player and bring them in. So you don't want to just hire an agency who works on great brands. You want to hire an agency who's worked with international brands that are expanding to the US for the first time. So work with that way. Then second, going to that focus group is like really figuring out, does their product resonate here? Translate their materials. Doesn't even just mean language translation, but nuanced cultural translations and localization for, even between LA and New York, we'll have to make completely different USP and messaging for a brand's products because they're very different types of buyers. So you want to look at that. You want to make sure that your social channels, are you going to run it off of your master social channel, or are you going to brand new ones for the US market? If you're going to start brand new ones, great, but that's going to require someone locally to manage and run them to make sure they're being responded to in the appropriate way, and that the nuances of those responses are in the local language as well. The influencers, again, I talk about that, but it's so beneficial if you find the right ones. And you don't want to just hire an influencer for a one-off post. You want to engage them in a series of posts. So you want them to do, maybe they're going to commit to doing 3 posts and 4 stories over the span of 2 months. That's a better option for a brand because repetition breeds trust as well. So their followers will sit there and see they're doing it more than once. Okay, maybe there's something to this. And just test it on a small scale until you can see the results. And a lot of brands will have to make adjustments moving in. Like they're like, okay, we do so well in Australia. We're going to come and we're going to launch in the US, and it's going to be just the same. And they come and they spend a whole bunch of money doing the campaigns that they did in Australia. But if they would have just taken a step back first and done a little bit slower, they would have adjusted and they would have seen better results. So really taking that time.
So finally, can you share your company's mission?
Company's mission, yeah, we help brands tell great stories that are memorable and get them more clients.
Okay.
That's storytelling. That's our mission.
I love that. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us. We love learning more about Jive PR and Digital, and we look forward to connecting with you more soon.
Excellent. Thank you so much. It's been nice.